When I visit my sister's house, I see dirt in her house she doesn't see. And when she visits my house, she sees lots of dirt. And you go, okay, I see that. Well, that's what a culture is at one level. A culture is a set of values, a set of norms, and then companies try to institutionalize that.
Yeah, so today's topic is, of course, basically we want to talk about culture today, you know,
Oh, I
uh,
love
a-
that topic.
and why culture matters, what does it mean, how to create and change culture. Of course, impossible to do any justice to that in 30 minutes, but hope to make some start on that.
Well, Partha, I am honored to join you again and again next week. So this is just a delight for me. I thought quite a bit about the recognition and the need for a framework to
Right.
move recognition beyond trinkets and toys and sweatshirts, and
Yeah,
that's a foundation. I mean, that's not a bad thing. I mean, we need trinkets and t-shirts and those
absolutely.
things, but we need to go beyond it. And I thought your framing that was actually quite good. Let me move this slide over a little bit. Just
Thanks,
a little
Dave.
bit.
Thanks.
So
So yeah,
I hope you can do it. Okay,
so
I'm set.
okay, so I'll start with the most famous line, right? And I think I read in your one of your articles, Peter Drucker didn't say that, right? Culture eats strategy for breakfast. Uh, I mean, it's good to say this, but what's the reality? Okay, why? I mean, very broad question. I mean, why is culture important?
Culture is not a new topic. There was a book written, I think, in the '60s that had 150 definitions of culture.
Wow.
Anthropologists, sociologists. It's
Yeah,
been studied for decades. It's remember the woman who went to live with the gorillas. I can't remember her name, but she was
yeah.
an anthropologist and trying to find out how animal species create common patterns. It came into the organization literature in the '70s and '80s, and Peter Drucker may not have said it, but I think he would have believed it.
Mm.
There are some underlying norms and patterns that shape who we are and what we do. And so people started to say, wow, and at some level, we get it. I love to ask people, think about two grocery stores you visited. Think about two hotels you visited. Think about a restaurant you visited. How long before you can feel an underlying ethos or pattern? And they say, what do you mean? I say, well, are the employees engaged? Is it clean? And they go, wow, I can feel that within 5 minutes when I walk into a restaurant. Was I greeted? Was the service quick? Were people positive? And say, that's the first definition of culture. It's the underlying values and norms that exist within a company. And they're there. They're real. We see them, especially outsiders see them. I know you do
Mm.
your work and you visit a lot of companies. I'm curious, how long does it take you when you visit a company before you can get a sense of that underlying way things are done?
Absolutely, and I'd say, well, I go to a company and the way they treat me, even they seeing me off to the door, right? A very senior,
Nice.
the CFO, is actually meeting me, but he walks me out to the door. I'm like,
Oh,
okay, there's something here. Okay, he didn't need to
yeah.
walk me out there, but it's so simple. I mean, yes, I can, and I'm thinking about the hotels. Okay, where I because the service industry, I go to. I immediately know what chain of hotels that is. Okay, by immediately seeing the behavior to us.
Uh,
Absolutely.
and it's not new. I love to think of examples outside of work where it's real. Imagine going to dinner at a friend's house. Where do you sit? How do you serve food? Do you say grace?
Mm.
Who eats when? I mean, there's patterns. For example, our daughters, when they were teenagers, would date. We have a horrible pattern in our house when we were out to dinner. We believe that any food on any plate is okay.
Mhm.
So if somebody orders French fries, you can just reach over and eat their French fry. That's not a pattern in most families. So when our daughters would go on a date with some young man, they'd order French fries and they'd reach over and eat his French fry. And he'd go, "What are you doing?" And I realize those patterns are real. We grow up with them. We live with them in families. When I visit my sister's house, I see dirt in her house she doesn't see, and when she visits my house, she sees lots of dirt. And you go, okay, I see that. Well, that's what a culture is at one level.
Right.
A culture is a set of values, a set of norms, and then companies try to institutionalize that. They try to say, how do we put words behind those patterns? And we call them values. We call them our norms. We call them our expectations. And that's where the culture work really began in the 70s and 80s through recently. Are you aware of cultures? And I get amazed that people have amazing insights. Somebody published an article recently that said toxic cultures are bad.
Mm.
And I went, are you kidding me? You published that? I mean, that that's not a publishable article. That's an obvious insight.
Yeah.
But the culture work is evolving. We all get that it's there. We even get that it matters because we fit or we don't fit. Um, I've been asked, would you be a good employee at Disney World? And my answer
Mhm.
is no, because at
Mhm.
Disney World, you wear a heavy costume. It's 90 degrees and it's high humidity. It's 35 degrees Celsius, high humidity, and you're sweating. And some little kid comes up and starts pulling on your head. My first reaction is to say to the parents, control your kid. Well, Disney says that's not the employee we want. They want to say, oh, what a lovely child.
Right.
We are so glad you're at Disney. I may not fit in that culture. I
Mm.
think I would in other ways. And organizations have patterns that work. Where
Mm.
culture is evolving, and I want to get into this a little bit, and why it matters more is culture is not about our values. It's about how our values create value for our customer. So in our last call, we talked about the levels of employee engagement from motivation,
Mm.
satisfaction, commitment, engagement, recognition affects all those levels. I think culture at some level was a set of values. So we go to an away day and we come up with our values and behaviors. It's a set of practices, hiring, training, development. It's a set of unwritten rules. All three of those levels, values, practices, and unwritten rules, are inside the company.
Mm.
We believe that the next level of culture is the value of the values in the marketplace. And the reason Drucker's quote may not be Drucker's, but it's so true. Culture is a part of your company's brand. If I think of a company, what are they known for? And again, I can use, I don't know Hindustan Unilever. What is it known for? Social responsibility.
Mm.
That identity causes me as a customer to choose to use a Unilever product instead of another product. If I
Mm.
go to an airline, there are airlines in India that are high end, uh, not in India, Emirates Air, Singapore Air, their brand
Yeah.
identity is service.
Right.
There are airlines in India that their identity is cost, not
Mm.
service.
Right.
Well, that external identity becomes the value of their values, and their internal practices should reflect those values. So when we talk about culture, we talk about building the right culture, which is the identity of the firm in the mind of your key customer. And if I want to sell on price, and that's the identity, low cost, I'm going to build internal practices around price, around compensation, around hiring, around training. Price and costs are going to be key because that's what my customers buy. If I build a culture based on service, I'm going to build a different internal practice. And to me, some of that is not cultures are good or bad. They're good or bad depending on how they create value for the customer. I'll give one
Mm.
quick example, and I'm sorry to do that. Amazon is known as a fairly tough culture at the Amazon distribution.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
sure around the world we all know it, online service. There was an article a number of years ago. Amazon is really tough. Their culture is demanding. Their culture is rigorous. Their systems are tough. And I got interviewed. And I said, number one, if an employee is being abused physically, emotionally, socially, that's wrong. We can stipulate that. Nobody believes tough equals abuse.
Yeah.
But then I said, so why am I buying Amazon? Why am I choosing Amazon as my online retailer? Their products are cheap, they deliver
Mm.
on time, they're very easy to work with. And then I say, that's why I mean, in where I live, Amazon UPS truck doesn't need a guidance system because they come to my house so often.
Yeah.
I buy a lot from Amazon. Why? Because they're cheap, they're efficient, they're easy to work with. What kind of internal system do you need to make that happen? Loose or tight? And the answer is very tight. You
Right.
don't want creativity. You don't want the driver to say, "Oh, I'm going to experiment every day with how I get to Dave's house." No, we have discovered the right route and our systems make it work. Culture at Amazon is tight, not abusive. And again, let's be clear. I think that's the issue. I buy Amazon because they have a very tight culture. I use other products because they're very creative and they're very innovative and they have new
Right.
ideas. And the culture inside should reflect the promises to customers outside. Okay, I'm done with my
No,
that was
no,
way too long a talk, but that's a
no,
new
no.
way to think about culture.
No, absolutely. I mean, so I haven't studied too much on culture. It's like, you get it intrinsically kind of thing. But what you've said made a lot of sense. And I put a couple of points here. So there's no right or wrong culture. You know. So for example, in a financial institution, I remember the What of Wall Street was there. That movie was there. Uh, the Wolf
Greed
of
is good.
the Wolf
Greed is
of
good. The Wolf
yeah,
of
grid
Wall
is
Street.
good. Wolf of Wall Street. So it's like the culture is cutthroat, but maybe that's what is required in that kind of financial institution. I don't know about Enron, but I mean, was that good? Was it not good? I don't know. But yeah, so different industries or companies would have different cultures. Something is good, something is bad. But I also take your point about abusive. I mean, it's not, as long as it's not abusive, it's not physically and mentally harassing you. Yeah, maybe that's how the cultures are.
Well, and I love to tie this to your great work in Vantage Circle on recognition. Airlines, one, they differentiate on routes. So I'm going to fly from Mumbai to Dubai, and there's two or three airlines that have the route. So you differentiate on routes. Then you differentiate on price. So there may be a price. And then usually there's two or three airlines that are trying to differentiate on service. We
Mm,
try to provide great service, and there's two airlines. So how do I pick? Well, one of the cool things I've seen in airlines is they provide customers the chance to do recognition. So I fly on Delta a lot. I'm one of their frequent flyers. And I may have shared this before, they send me 10 coupons, each worth $100, tax loaded. So it's
mm,
$1,000. And they say, Dave, you control $1,000 of our bonus pool. So what they've done conceptually is they've said 3 to 4 to 5% of their bonus pool is going to be given to customers to give recognition to an employee who serves them well.
mm.
I love this. So I get on an
Wow.
airplane. I've learned on a long flight, early in the flight, give the flight attendant a coupon for $100 and you get great service. I get lots of cookies. But look at what they're doing. They're allowing the customer
Right,
access to their compensation, not money, but recognition.
right,
And I
right.
think the more that we can involve customers as part of the recognition system, the more likely we are to create a culture that is focused on what customers value. So anyway, that's I was going to tie to your
I,
work on recognition.
I absolutely love this example. I was not aware of this thing. I know, giving the customer the control over giving the recognition. Absolutely. I mean, of course, in the US, the tipping culture is there, right? So that also may be a way of. I mean, there are extremes of both sides, but there's
Oh, it's so weird when I fly, and I fly quite a bit, and I don't have a coupon because I've given them away or something. I sometimes give the flight attendant $20, and they always say, as they take it in their hand and say, "I can't keep this," as they put it in their pocket. and 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 again, I'm not here to be tipping, but I'm here. The principle is, how can we include our customers
Mm,
as part of our recognition ecosystem?
mm.
And that reflects the culture. That reflects the culture. And the more that I think we can do that, the more I think rewards and recognition become carriers of a positive culture. So you started with the question, why does culture matter? Because when you build that brand, I'll choose airline A over airline B
Right.
because of my experience as a customer. And the culture then institutionalizes that. It institutionalizes that. This is an example I love to use. By the way, it's so fun to talk to you because I get excited. Um, an HR person says to a sales and marketing person, "May I go with you to visit a customer?" And the sales and marketing person says, "What? You know, why are you doing that?" Trust me, I'm from HR. I'm here to help. I hope HR never says that. But they go to a customer, and the customer says to Partha, "Here's the product or service we're selling. You currently buy 40% of this product from us." And then the customer looks at me and says, "Who are you?" And I say, "I'm from HR. Let me tell you why I'm here. The salesperson just sold you a product. I want to build with you a relationship. I'm from HR. I now know the things you most care about. It could be service, it could be quality, it could be speed, it could be technology, it could be price. I'm going to go back and look. Are we hiring people who can do that? Are we training people to do it better? Are we paying people? Are we giving recognition against the things you just said?" And I can build those systems so that what you value becomes institutionalized in how we operate.
Mm.
And then I look at that customer and I say, when we do that, we want 80% of your business. Our salesperson just sold you a product. I'm selling you a partnership and a relationship. And all the commission goes to the salesperson. So now they love me more. But notice that
Yeah.
mindset is so cool because we've changed culture from an internal, let's go offsite where we value collaboration, we value integrity, we value service, and we've defined behaviors. Let the customer define the behaviors. And then when we do them, say, we want to go from 40 to 80%. This is not a social good. But if
Yeah.
we build the organization that's not just about selling you a product, but a relationship, we should get more of your business. Anyway, that's when I talk about culture, you said this is our topic today. That gets me more excited than almost any
No,
other topic at all.
I think we will have more conversations on this. I've made a few points, but you made it so simple, to understand. Everyone feels culture intrinsically, but making it very simple, institutionalizing as founders. How do we set a culture? It's different. That brings me to, something which you said. As the company evolves, okay, does culture changes? You must have seen so many companies where the culture changes. One is because of change in leadership, but other might also be because of the market requirements. Okay, for example, the latest example is Twitter. Okay, so from a totally different culture, Elon Musk comes in and changes the entire culture there. Okay, maybe it was the need of the market. I have no comments on that. But do you think companies should be constantly monitoring their position in the market, how the market is moving, and change cultures, or is it too uh, too much of a inbuilt thing that you shouldn't change the basic fabric of the culture? You can add a few things.
Yes, 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 1,000 times yes. Cultures have to change, no question. What drives the change? My sense is Musk, I think, may have made a mistake because the change was driven by his values, not the customer. If you change a culture based on customer changes, and a simple example, I don't know how common it is in India to have KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken.
It's pretty common, yeah.
It's pretty common. It's a Pepsi company.
Yeah.
Well, their name was Kentucky Fried Chicken. In the world today, fried is not healthy.
Mm.
I know that because I've eaten fried chicken before and I like it. So they changed the name to KFC and begin to build a menu that's more healthy. They are trying to change their identity in the marketplace.
Mm.
You change a culture inside when the external marketplace requires the change outside. I mentioned Amazon. Amazon succeeded in the 90s because of their e commerce business. Well, today, that's not their core business. It's AWS, it's information, it's
Mm.
reinventing data and services. Microsoft, right now, and it'll go up and down, is one of the two or three most valued companies in the world. And I pick Amazon, Apple, Microsoft. Look at how all of those companies have changed their internal practices to reflect the changes in the market system. And so, yes, 1,000 times yes. Don't think of culture as our values. Think of culture as how our values create value for the changing marketplace. And so people say, how often should a culture change? My answer is as quickly as the marketplace changes. I was working in a company that made paper.
Mm.
They build trees, they cut down trees, they make paper. I got to be honest, tree growing is not a rapidly changing business because it
Yeah.
takes 20 years to build a tree. Their culture is going to change much less quickly
Yeah.
than a culture like Amazon or Apple, where the customer changes are quick. So, should a culture change? Of course,
Yeah. Yeah.
against the marketplace, because if it doesn't change, they go out of business. Kodak. It's always embarrassing to name companies I've worked for. Kodak was the most profitable company in the world, making a 3-foot piece of acetate 1 inch wide.
Right.
I mean, the margins were incredible, but the marketplace went away from film to electronic imaging.
Mm.
Kodak missed it. They didn't build an external lens against that set of expectations,
Mm.
and Kodak got in trouble. I mean, that's the outside in view that I just I'm going to keep reinforcing your great work on recognition. Value is defined by the receiver. When
Right.
you try to provide recognition to an employee, is it something the employee values? That's why, again, our conversations have gotten me to think: do I, as an employee, value a T-shirt with the name of the company?
Mm-hmm.
No, that doesn't create great value for me. Do I
Yeah.
value a watch? No, that doesn't create great value. So you got to stop. What's valuable for the employee?
Mm.
Companies that do that with recognition as part of their mindset of culture from the outside in, I think are successful. For example, one company said, we work really hard. Our employees work hard. What they value is time with their family and loved ones. So this company said in January, and again, this was a Western company, post the end of the year, post Christmas, hotels are not as busy. We're going to go buy 50 hotel nights in some nice hotels, and we're going to give those out as recognition last year of the employees who did good work, so that
Right.
you and your partner or your family can go spend 3 nights in a nice hotel on the beach.
Mm.
And they built a recognition program against what an employee valued. Instead of giving an employee $1,500, they gave them 3 nights in a hotel, which was phenomenal
Yeah.
because they built
Yeah.
culture outside, they built recognition outside in. That's the logic that I hope your work and
Yeah.
our work can begin to build.
Absolutely. Love this thought on this. And I mean, any major shift which you have seen post COVID? I mean, on a general level, I mean, of course, every company had to adapt to what was happening and culture change. But any strong underlying thing which you have seen across industries post COVID from the culture angle?
I'm going to shift gears just a little bit because I posted today, and it's only been out for 2 hours. Whenever this shows, it's going to be old news. We just did some amazing research. My team did. I didn't do the research. What does it take to be a good leader? New topic, not a new topic. Pre COVID and post COVID. Let me tell you the things that they found post COVID: frontline leadership, first line leaders, supervisors. Post COVID, number one, personalized work. Personalized work.
Mhm.
How can we build work that works for you? COVID, I think, taught us that we all manage work differently. In COVID, we have 3 children. They have families. Their children were not in school because they were homeschooled. It was very difficult for them. One of our daughters quit her job and homeschooled. One of our daughter's husbands cut back his job to half time. They co-parented. The other one, our son, went to work and the wife stayed home. They each personalized how they worked. I think, and my wife and I were obviously older. We don't have children at home. COVID was an inconvenience, but it wasn't as major a shift. I think that personalization will continue. I think that's fascinating. The second one is even more fascinating. When I read comments, everybody says to the leader, and it's part of culture: be compassionate, show empathy, care, concern. The research we found was amazing. When we looked at positive outcomes for the business, what is it a leader did with the employee? And it wasn't just compassion, care, and concern. It was give the employee a sense of hope for the future. Let me say that again because it's so
Wow.
compelling.
Yeah.
An employee comes to me as a leader and says, "Oh, things are really hard. I'm having to work more hours. Technology is changing my life, health, etc." And says, "Oh, that's okay. I hope you're good." Look at the employee and say, "I care about you. Let me help you discover and have hope for what the future might bring you." And the leaders who created hope for the future more than compassion for the present were more effective. I
Wow.
just found that research fascinating because it's a little bit counterintuitive.
No, and I'm just as you were speaking, I was just thinking about it, and it's not just leadership at in the company. When I talk to my children, I give them hope. Okay, in a way, and this is, oh, you can do well. Okay, you can be this thing. Okay, the hope which we give, that is what actually encourages them to do a lot of additional work, as well as my job as their dad is the same as a leader for them, right? To
Oh, I
give
love it.
them
How many
hope
kids do you have? How many kids do you have?
to a son and a daughter, 14 and 12.
Wow. They will not like you for the next 7 years, but they'll come back. They will like you again. Now,
Yes.
I love the idea of hope, and we
Yeah.
talked briefly about it before. I hope we'll talk about it some more in our other sessions because I think the next level of employee sentiment or engagement is around offering hope for the future.
Yeah.
How do I give it? And that's what this research showed. It really intrigued me because I've written about leaders should be caring, they should be compassionate, they should be empathetic. And then the women who did the research said, Dave, our research shows that the most empathy and compassion you can give is giving people hope for what's next. Don't just live with them in the past, help them create what can be.
Yeah, no, and I'm just thinking this is such a. We will definitely have a top discussion on this, because I was just thinking. I mean, we recently. I don't know if you followed the news. So a huge Hindu temple has been created. Okay, I'm not too much into religion and all, but I was thinking, why? Okay, why are people so excited? Okay, so what Modi, who's the prime minister, what he has given is he's given a hope that this is the century of India. Okay, we are back again, and all those things. Okay, and it is giving hope to so many people who might not be able to see any of these things in their lifetime, but a hope for like a big future. And that's why he is so popular. I mean, in every, I think leaders, I think, yeah, who can give hope with substance.
And
I
that's
think
part of the culture, and again, without being too religious, some prophets or religious leaders tell people they're going to hell if they don't repent.
yeah,
Others tell them what heaven looks like and how to
yeah.
get there.
So
You just described the latter.
yes,
This is what a positive heaven, whatever the metaphor is, looks
right.
like. Here's how to get there. I'm not telling you you're horrible and have to change. I'm telling you you have hope in what the future
Yeah.
might bring. And when you can embed that, let's go back to culture. When you can embed that into a company that sees and anticipates a future that isn't the present by looking outside in, where will the customer be? I think
Mm.
right now we're seeing, and I don't have an answer for this, so maybe you'll create it. AI is going to change the world of work. We know that. Access to information. If somebody can capture what that AI will do for the customer and what they will expect more because of it, and then turn that external vision into some internal practices, I think they're going to have great success. So that's the idea.
Absolutely.
Culture is not the value, it's the value of the values outside in.
Will not have questions, but just are there? I mean, my last question, I mean, for today is: are there any frameworks in how, if I want to bring in certain culture, certain kind of culture in the company, how should I go about thinking about the different things? Because otherwise, I'll just put my culture, like whatever I believe in, I'll just force it in. How do I go about thinking about it? How do I design the culture? I know you can't answer this very briefly, but are there
I will
frameworks?
answer it very briefly. I think there is a playbook or a blueprint for culture. I'm going to give 5 steps, and I hate 5 steps, but let's be linear. Number one, what is it we want to be known for by our best customers in the future?
Mhm.
That's the outside in identity. That's what we've talked about. What is it we want to be known for? Number two, once we've got that, and we could talk a lot about it, intellectual agenda. How do we get that and make that identity real to everybody intellectually? the words, the metaphors. Number three, a behavioral agenda. How do we engage employees in saying, what does service mean to me? What does low cost mean to me? How do we do an intellectual agenda? Number two, a behavioral agenda. Number three, number four, a process agenda. How do we weave that promised identity into hiring, training, development, compensation, resource allocation? And number five, a leadership brand. How do we make sure that our leaders behave against those external promises? So I'll do it again very quickly. Number one, what do we want to be known for by our key customers in the future? That's the outside in logic. Two, build an intellectual agenda, words, metaphors, visuals. Number three, create a behavioral agenda, bottom up, let people behave against it. Number four, process agenda, just shift processes. And number five, leadership agenda.
Beautiful. I'm sure you have written about it, so I'll definitely look into that. Thanks, Dave. Thanks for your time.